This episode is going to flip how you think about team meetings and using AI as a web design and digital marketing agency. Her team is excited to show up for meetings because their framework builds innovation and feedback loops right into the process.
With those buzzwords with AI, really trying to streamline operations for our different departments, utilizing AI and making sure that we have time back in our day to do the things that we really want to focus on, giving them time back to design, giving them time back to market, and to really focus on, those things that really better the strategies for our clients.
I have a sort of a controversial question, if you're willing to play with me a little bit here in the conversation. With AI personalizing everything, I would imagine in the future that we're already seeing it in social media algorithms where you see a different thread than I see.
Anytime people bring up AI, and especially in that lane, there's some hesitancy because you want to make sure that you're crafting a great experience specifically for the user.
If you're trying to bring AI into your work without making everything sound robotic, or you're tired of going to meetings that should have been an email, this episode's packed with stuff you can use right now. My guest today, Alaina Corsini, head of agency at Red Shark Digital. Alaina, tell me, as the head of agency, what do you spend most of your time thinking about these days?
I would say operations, with those buzzwords with AI just at the forefront of almost everything that we do now. Really trying to streamline operations for our different departments, utilizing AI and really expediting just efficiency and making sure that we have time back in our day to do the things that we really want to focus on. And especially for those different departments, giving them time back to design, giving them time back to market, and to really focus on, those things that really better the strategies for our clients.
Red Shark Digital focuses on web design, but you're also a full service digital agency. What's your background for the audience?
Yeah. So I'm originally actually from Boston, so we're headquartered in North Carolina. My background is in PR. I have a undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Arts in PR with a concentration in leadership studies. And then I went on to get my graduate degree in health communication. And so really have a lot of fundamental comm knowledge, marketing, and PR side of things. And so I started working in social media marketing, doing freelancing, was doing some paid advertising, just, creating Facebook ads, doing a little bit of Google advertisements, was working as a digital strategist, and then had an opportunity at Red Shark Digital to really spearhead their paid advertising efforts. And so I worked at Red Shark Digital, was really working specifically in paid advertising, grew through content and SEO up to marketing director. And then now I am the head of agency. And so I oversee the entire agency, including the different marketing departments, website design and development, as well as our creative and sales department.
I have a sort of a controversial question, if you're willing to play with me a little bit here in the conversation. With AI personalizing everything, I would imagine in the future that we're already seeing it in social media algorithms where you see a different thread than I see. It's all based on personas and deep dives in what my personal interests are. Do you think that the web is shifting that way? And, like if I land on a website in the future, will I see the same thing that you see on the website, or will there be some sort of adjustment or personalization?
Yeah, I definitely think, and there are a lot of tools out there now that can even do this layer of personalization. And I do think to the degree of different user journeys and like really adhering to different target markets, there is a need for that. And I think that we're going to continue to see that just in terms of, when you land on a specific website, if you land on a landing page, you want the experience to be catered to what you're looking for and what you're expecting when you land on that specific web page or that specific landing page. And so I definitely do think, especially with AI and the increasing like tools and the technology that are out there, it's making these types of platforms and tools more accessible and more affordable. And so I do think that we're going to continue to see that, not just from these bigger brands and bigger organizations, but at that, more granular level and those smaller levels as well.
When it comes to web design, knowing that potentially that's the way that the future is going, where we're shifting the website, are you excited about that or a little bit hesitant?
Yeah, I think there's always some hesitancy anytime, honestly, people bring up AI, and especially in that lane, it's whenever you give up some type of control, there's some
Mm,
hesitancy because you want, especially from a marketer's perspective and a design perspective, you want a catered experience and you want, when there's brand control involved, you want to have your hand in it. You want to make sure that you're crafting a great experience specifically for the user. And so when you're utilizing AI and you're utilizing these technologies, it's almost like, okay, I'm letting the algorithm do its thing and I'm letting, and I'm leaving it up to the tools and the platforms to do, what I'm expecting it to do. And so I think there's always a little bit of hesitancy, but I
mm,
do think it just means that it allows us to become better marketers and become, just more advantageous in the way that we're creating campaigns and getting success for the campaign because it's more catered to the customer and more catered to like the specific target market. It's going to show them a better experience and it's going to turn into results and then, hopefully revenue for the business. So I think although there is some hesitancies around it, although, there can be some downfalls, I think that it is promising because it just means a better experience for the people that are, finding these pages and looking through the web.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, good marketing is innately human, and if we can understand and speak to a human
Exactly.
wherever they're at in their client journey or in their customer journey, then the likelihood of them engaging with us and doing business is much higher. How do you think about creating content for a customer journey? Like, traditionally, we have tofu, mofu, bofu. Is there anything else that I'm missing or any sort of specifics that maybe you go into?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, you hit on, I mean, definitely, the different stages of the funnel. And I think right now I've heard, there are gurus out there that are like, the funnel's dead. I don't think the funnel's dead. I just think it is changing and the way
Mm,
that people are searching is changing. And so, traditionally we have that top of the funnel, that middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, I think has just extended. It's not just Google. It's not just people, going into Google and typing a longer tailed keyword. They're searching through ChatGPT, they're searching through these other platforms, and they're typing differently, they're searching differently. And so I think catering some of that content as well to that bottom of the funnel, but extending beyond just, that generic in-market search, but a little bit longer tailed. I think that
mm.
specifically is what we're finding. There's more people are searching, there was longer tailed, but there's even more longer tailed. People are typing in, their entire like thought process into even Google and into ChatGPT. And so
Yeah.
having and creating content that either hits on those searches or at least you mentioned that like human authoritative, that like human perspective, that's the kind of stuff that people are looking for and that even can resonate with those longer tailed searches.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. When you're talking about bringing on a new client to Red Shark Digital, you really want to capture the brand's voice
Mhm.
because likely nobody on your team is going to be an expert in that specific niche or that specific category. How do you really capture the brand voice in order to be able to replicate content and produce, high quality content that speaks to their audience? How do you do that during the onboarding process?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the first things that we do, so during our sales process, we've got, at least one marketer in there that is working alongside our account manager to just hear everything, as we're creating that proposal and creating those recommendations. So from the get-go, right when we're selling, we kind of have an idea of this is the strategy and this is the path. We've already, asked what competitors they have. We've already asked what their target market is, et cetera. And so we already have an idea of what we're looking to do.
Mhm.
From the very get-go, we are having an internal meeting where we're combining all of the different departments. So if it is a website project, we're bringing in creative, we're bringing in our SEO team for the foundations of building that website, we're bringing in development, we're bringing in our project manager, we're bringing in that account manager and myself, who is a part of that proposal process, to just put all of our heads together and say, hey, this is what we're recommending specifically for that client. And this is what we see based off of their current tone, their current messaging, what we're currently seeing in their digital presence. From there, our next step is we do a client kickoff. And so we are bringing
Mm,
those key leadership and the managers in that internal kickoff. We're bringing them to the client kickoff we're meeting with the client, meeting with any other stakeholders, and we're presenting our findings and presenting essentially our strategy and what our next steps would be for the website or whatever project we're working on. From there is where we're getting intel specifically from that client on, hey, are we right on the money with tone? Are we right on the money with messaging, with
Mm.
colors, with branding, with all of, the different components that really go into who a brand is and what makes them different from their competitors. We're going through that in the client kickoff process. Also, after that meeting, we're sending an intake form that they're able to fill out that directly gives them an opportunity as well as other members of their team. We know that, especially when you're designing a website or you're doing a great marketing or a bigger marketing campaign, there are going to be other stakeholders involved. And so that intake form allows them to get input from their team as well to be able to say, hey, these are our core KPIs. These are our core target markets to be able to really tailor that tone and that messaging. Everything we learn from the internal kickoff, everything we learn from the client kickoff, and then the intake form, as well as every step of that proposal process is what we're including as part of our internal notes. And that before we create any content, we're digesting that, we're meeting internally, and we're creating documentation as like almost like a one sheet or like a two sheet.
Mm.
It's a little bit more than one page, but it's
Mhm.
just going into details of everything about that specific client, everything that we need to know to create engaging, authoritative content to be able to rank in their specific industry or space.
I love that you not only have the client kickoff call, but you send that form. And it sounded to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounded to me like the client's team can all add to that form and not just one specific source, right? You're actually reaching out into different experts or people who, in the client's case, are speaking with their clients in different capacities. Maybe it's client success or customer service or sales or like a PM. You're talking with different people in the client's team to understand their target audience from different perspectives. This is almost what it sounds like. And then bringing that all together. My next question is, that's a lot of, I mean, yes, it's a lot of data, but it also sounds like it might be a lot of work on your end at Red Shark Digital. I'm curious what kind of AI workflows you've enabled internally that can help with the efficiency of your operations. Maybe it's on that side of intake and writing content, or maybe there's something else. Where are you using AI, and how have you enabled it in the operations of the agency where it's had the biggest impact?
Yeah. Broke up a little bit there, but I think I caught you. So I think specifically with AI and during that onboarding process, we're utilizing it when that intake form is filled out. We're using it to scrub that data and then to implement it into like we've got a within our project management tool, we create like an internal client board that has a lot of this information, the point of contact, the scope of work, etc. All of that information, the target market KPIs that we're learning throughout all of that process has to then be transcribed into our project management tool to say, hey, team, now go ahead and like actually do the execution tasks. Go ahead and do those deliverables. And
Mm.
so that's where we're utilizing that from that beginning, that onboarding process. And then the next in content creation, we utilize that specifically to brainstorm, to kind of get our, I always say like the guts out on to paper for our
Mm.
copywriting process. And then from there, we're going through and we have a human touches every single piece of content that we're writing. They're going through, they're reviewing that piece of content, they're updating it, they're adding external links, internal links, they're structuring it for SEO if it's not already. We're ensuring that, it has those best practices that we know and that we've learned as SEO experts and not just necessarily relying on AI. But that's a
Mhm.
huge part of the process that, traditionally, and when I was doing it years ago, it's like you're manually writing every single word that you're putting into that blog or putting into that article or that resource. That's allowed us to expedite things exponentially, create more content, create better content because we're able to spend more time on the SEO side of things, on keywords, on structure, on these longer tailed keywords that people are actually searching for, ensuring that it's in this piece of content versus having to, physically write every single word. So I would say
Yeah.
specifically in our onboarding process, it's during that first initial scope of work. And then again with AI, during our content creation process, it's really expedited things exponentially.
Yeah.
We also use Jasper for content creation, and so something a
Mm.
valuable part of Jasper is that it's confidentiality. We're uploading and we're utilizing Jasper, and it's not utilizing what we're inputting back to train other language models or like to train other clients. It's
Mhm.
utilizing it specifically for the client that we're working with. The other thing that AI, another huge great component, and even hitting on the tone and the messaging that you had
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, with Jasper, you can upload knowledge bases. And so you can upload that one sheeter that I had mentioned. You can upload brand guidelines. You can upload if a client has a communication plan or, branding and identity. We can upload that to say, hey, when you're creating content, when you're creating these social posts or, an article or this resource, utilize everything that we've put into the knowledge base in order to create well established authoritative.
What other sort of AI tools are you using that maybe you're implementing as a layer on top of your current operations that have helped you enhance data, enhance analytics, enhance the content writing? What else do you use on top?
Yeah. I would say Jasper was a huge implementation over the last few years that we added on in specifically with content creation and SEO because of the tone and the messaging and the client profiles essentially. And we hit on this earlier, but like it's critical when you're creating content for a variety of different industries, a variety of different clients, you have to make sure that what you're writing is for them and it's for their specific target market and their consumers. And so Jasper was a huge thing that we added that because we were able to compartmentalize everything and allow our team to have access to it, it really expedited things.
Mm,
Adding in those knowledge bases. So Jasper was a big one. We still use ChatGPT and we're utilizing a lot of that for competitor research and just like
mm,
doing some research that we normally and manually would do. And it would just take a little bit of time
mhm,
on the web. And then the other really big one that's just sticking out to me, it's not necessarily with content creation, but with our website design and development, we use Reloom. And so we use
mm,
Reloom when we're wireframing and when we're building sitemaps. Those have helped us exponentially and they've made us so much more efficient and so much quicker at building sitemaps and building those initial wireframes because we're able to go in and we're essentially telling it, we're giving it a client profile and the type of website that we're looking for, and it'll build an entire sitemap and then
mm,
build wireframes based off of that sitemap. It's very easy to go in and like swap out different Reloom components. That from their platform and from their browser can be exported directly into Figma, which is
mm.
our design platform, and then from Figma can be put directly into Webflow. And so that's expedited and really helped things exponentially because it's using AI to create the sitemap, to create those wireframes, and then we're able to bring in a marketer during that development process and during that design process a little bit quicker versus, hey, let's manually create all of these wireframes and then make it to design. It's creating it, automatically for us, and then we're able to expedite things for the client.
I love that. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Like creating some sort of a sitemap can take forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to expedite that, I'm sure it lifted a huge burden. Tell me a little bit more about your team, because I would imagine that you're not the one who's actually, going in there and doing that all the time. Maybe there's specific
Right.
clients or scenarios where you can go in and guide. What does your team structure look like specifically? Is it like a flat structure? Or do you have, like a leadership team, C suite, or anything like that?
Mhm, mhm. Yep, we have a leadership team, which is myself, our founder and managing partner, as well as our CFO, and so that's our core leadership team, and then we have another layer of we actually call them core, and it's myself and then our sales director and our paid and social project manager, and so we really have our marketing arm and our sales arm, which are, like, the 2 big components that we're
Hmm.
building on in the business. And then from there, we've got our different departments. And so we've got marketing, we have website design and development, sales, and then creative. Within each department, there's either a project manager and or a director. And then under that are, the execution, the digital strategists, copywriters, designers, junior developers, developers, senior developers. We've got other digital strategists who are more specialized in SEO, paid, etc.
Mhm. Something that I'm hearing more and more of is, we're having this conversation about AI
Mhm.
and entry into the workforce, post college, like college grads, they're already struggling to find entry level jobs because of the prominence of AI.
Mhm.
Now, when I talk with agency founders and owners and like, marketing leaders, they all kind of say the same thing, which is like, we're not looking to replace people, but we know that we can empower them more
Yeah.
by using AI. My question is, when you're looking to hire in this day and age in
Mhm.
2026, what are some core competencies outside of just, their specialty? What are some core competencies that you would expect someone coming in to have, whether that's AI fluency or otherwise?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think so with AI too, I mean, especially when I'm hiring for, it depends what department I'm also hiring for. If I'm hiring for creative, there's going to be something else that I'm looking for than,
Hmm.
marketing. I'm going to expect them to say ChatGPT. I might expect them to know Jasper or know of these other tools or platforms. So I think depending on the department really depends on, a specific AI competency, so to speak. But I think at the core, when I'm hiring, I'm not even thinking about AI, honestly, and
Hmm.
I'm really thinking, and I'm bringing it back to those foundational and those, honestly, professionalism. I think that there's a
Mm,
layer of, because of AI and because there's, this accessibility at your fingertips, I want a professional, young, hungry, strong, like a strong work ethic, someone that's going to come in here and really show from the get-go that when they're walking in and they're shaking my hand, they're talking to
mm,
me directly in the eyes, they're making eye contact with me. If it's virtual, they're not on their phone or they've got a clean background, like just those professionalism things that I think because of AI and because things now are so accessible and like people can be really good and not necessarily know exactly what they're doing because they have the tools to be able to do it for them. It's that layer of professionalism, strong work ethic, and like just grit to be able to get the work done that can't be taught. You are raised a certain way. You've either got it or you don't. And so I think those are
mm,
the skills that I'm looking for where, this is still a job. This is a job. This is something that, I need to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward so that we're putting our best foot forward for our clients and just really ensuring that, whoever's walking through that door is going to represent us well. So even like beyond the AI, it's like how I feel specifically about tools and platforms is like I can teach that. I can teach you
yeah,
how to use SEMrush. I can teach you how to use Jasper. I can teach you how to craft a really good prompt in ChatGPT. But what I can't teach you is to show up for work every day on time, is to
yeah.
show up and get the job done or stay until the job gets done or those little things that it's just like, again, you just can't teach someone.
Yeah, the human aspects of
Yeah.
working on a team,
Yep.
and if it's a remote team, you have the unique experience of being the president of the Greenville Museum of Art Board of
Mhm.
Trustees, and that seems to me like a very community forward contributory role,
Yeah.
and it allows you to develop these human skills that are maybe not work related, although I'm sure there's tons of
Mhm.
overlap. How do you encourage your team to have that same sort of perspective on giving back to the community? And then how does that translate into Red Shark?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of our core values is to give back. And so it's something we are giving back to, it's from leadership. It's the leadership gives back to specifically our team, but then we give back to our community. And so although we're remote, we are headquartered in Greenville, North Carolina. And so it's very important to us that we're giving back to our community and, our humble beginnings and where we are
Mm,
here. I think transcending that to just our personal and our team members, we ensure that we're doing like a quarterly service activity. And usually we're doing a few additional ones, but there's like one primary. And before we do that, I work with our community engagement chair and we decide together and we'll poll the team on, hey, here are some upcoming events. Which ones are you guys interested in?
mm.
Last summer for Shark Week, we're like huge on Shark Week. We absolutely love it.
Nice.
We did this activity called Mutt Strutters where we took shelter dogs and we like it was half a day of work and we just like went and walked a bunch of dogs and like we absolutely loved that because we all love dogs and it was just
Yeah.
our perfect opportunity. And so really getting that feedback specifically from the clients, but then instilling in them too. We were talking earlier, I think if you do good work comes to you and good
Yeah.
comes to you. And so just ensuring that, we're giving back to the community that was so good to us, giving back to our clients, but then also just ensuring that in that value of philanthropy is still instilled in what we're doing personally as well. And I think by getting input and getting some kind of buy-in from the team just makes it all the worthwhile, but then it also makes them engaged as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I always find that if I'm ever feeling if I'm ever feeling down or like things aren't going my way, one of the easiest ways for me to get back on the horse, if you will, is to contribute and give to somebody else. It just
Well,
like, it
exactly.
puts me in a sense of abundance of like,
Yes.
even though if things aren't going my way, I can still add value to somebody else's life. I can still give
Yes.
back. And it puts me into a sense of abundance. On that note, empowering the team and really taking what they have to say with with credibility. How do you help the team ideate and be innovative? And like, do you have any processes in place where they feel like they can raise new ideas and they'll actually be heard? How do you empower that sort
Yeah.
of innovation?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that we do is we have a weekly internal meeting for each department, and so the first thing that we show, and we have an agenda for every meeting, and it's pretty similar for each department. There are some things that are a little bit different, projects versus campaigns, etc., but for the most part, the guts of it are essentially the same. And we start off that every single meeting with new or shiny things. And
Mm,
so right from the beginning, before we highlight wins or losses or anything else, we're talking about, hey, what's new and shiny? What did you personally create that you are proud of that you feel like is a shiny thing?
mm,
And from there, and it can even sometimes we'll have people add in like their personal life. If the meeting's on a Monday and they just, their kid went sledding for the first time or something like that, they'll show even like pictures from their personal life alongside a work example. But I
mm,
think that's just a way that we are starting off every meeting with like what's new, what's innovative, what have you created that you feel most proud of? And so I think starting off the meeting like on that foot in general is just like getting those wheels turning. From there we move into projects. And so what are you currently working on? What's in your way that we need to talk about during that meeting? So really like
mm,
working through any ad hoc items. And then from there the next item is actually a new thing. And so we're leaving an opportunity for every single person to be able to provide. Let's say they found a new tool in Jasper. Let's say they found a new prompt in ChatGPT or a LinkedIn post that like had a really good template or something like that. They're able to bring that specifically to that meeting, share
mm,
it with the rest of the team, and we'll even have sometimes like our web project manager will be in a meeting for marketing or our creative director, etc. And so it's just a way that like the entire team can say, "Hey, here are some new innovative things that I'm finding that are expediting my workflow and might help you with yours." And then right after that, the next item is opportunities. And so we are directly giving the team an opportunity to bring those to the table. I think this is something that, we've definitely got to work with the team on. Not every team member is going to look at, their higher up and be like, hey, I need you to manage me better, or I need you
mhm,
to provide more information when you're giving me that scope of work. So there's always a little bit of, just personalities and things that you've got to work with. But during that time, we are directly giving every person in that room an opportunity to provide feedback directly on
mm,
what's happening with the clients, directly what's happening on their tasks that they're working on their
mhm,
manager. And, again, sometimes we have those conversations elsewhere, but it's just an opportunity to be able to provide, intel from our team. And I think that focusing on those three things and including those in almost every internal meeting that we do department wise is
mhm,
critical because we're providing those exact opportunities for like, hey, tell us where we can improve, where we can do better, something that you're directly seeing in your role, something new. So if you found it on LinkedIn, we're also prompting that. So we're trying to say, like, hey, bring us something new that you're finding in the
mm.
landscape because things are always changing. And then again, just starting the meeting off with a newer shiny thing. What have you created this past week that's new or shiny? Might not be directly something that you've never done before, but it might be a new creative, or it might be a new font style, or a new, design. And so focusing on the innovation there as well, I think is just critical and part of every development, or excuse me, every department's meeting.
I saw you come alive when you were talking about this.
Yes,
It seems
my
like it's
hands move when my hands
yeah.
start moving.
I feel like it's very near and dear to your heart
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
allow other people to share what's
Yeah.
working for them and
Well,
yeah, where does
yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say that it's the too often I feel like, and especially in agency life, you get in the weeds of it. You're working on the execution,
yeah.
you're doing the day-to-day of what you are specifically assigned, and sometimes, especially from my perspective, it's like I've done a lot of the grunt work. I've worked my way up in this
Mhm.
specific organization as well as others, and so I do know, what needs to be done execution-wise, but
Mhm.
kind of pulling my head from the clouds and being like, I actually haven't done this in years.
Mm.
Someone will bring, or our copywriter might bring an opportunity, or our content manager actually just brought something this last meeting that was like, "Hey, I think we could maybe automate this." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about that because I've not done it in 6 years,
Yeah.
so to speak." But it starts to get you thinking, "Hey, what can we be more efficient on? What can we expedite?" And it's like, if you're not allowing your team to provide that input and provide and at least have that buy-in, they're not
Mhm.
gonna wanna do the work, and they're not gonna wanna do good work. If they and on the contrary, if you give them that opportunity to provide feedback and, like, have them feel confident in what they're doing, or at least, "Hey, I was able to say, 'Yes, I liked this,' or 'No, I didn't,' or 'Hey, here's an area to improve,'" then it gives them that buy-in to, again, to do good work for you, but then to do good work for themselves and the clients as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's this feedback loop of you provide the prompt, like, hey, we want you to share something new. They're able to
Yep,
bring it, get feedback. And then if something isn't working, they have the opportunity of asking for your feedback, from the leadership team or the core
exactly.
team. How can we get better at this? Hey, I found this. It seems like a very healthy environment. And that, from what I've seen, is those sort of environments tend to last the longest because you can
Oh,
weather
yeah.
the storm, you can be transparent, you can be open. So you mentioned that this sort of meeting structure is for department meetings
Mhm.
each week. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so each week you have a department meeting,
Mhm.
but I think you were kind of mentioning, and maybe I just didn't hear it right, but do you have interdepartmental meetings on a like a regular cadence where they're sharing things back and forth, the content team with the design team with that way you can get different ideas? I mean, is
Yep.
that what you do? Yeah.
Yeah, so each week the departments have like a separate meeting. So marketing will have a meeting, website design and development, creative, and then sales as well. And then there will be, depending on the content of that meeting or the agenda, our project manager or our creative director will join the marketing
Mm,
meeting, or the marketing lead will join the creative meeting or the department meeting, etc. And then once a month as well, we just call it like a department check-in. And essentially, we're bringing in all of the department heads into one. And so this is a little bit more, we're talking ad hoc, we're talking clients and to-dos, but it's a little bit more operational. What
mm,
have you seen bandwidth wise? Do we need to add on hours for specific people? Do we need to reduce? Do you have enough bandwidth for these upcoming projects? We're talking a little bit more across departments, and then also focusing on communicating. How can we work together well, and how can we work together better?
mm.
Because we've got different departments, because we have, an account manager who is essentially the client liaison between the client and our team. There's a lot of, through the grapevine and like play telephone. And so we've got to
Yeah.
make sure that we're communicating appropriately. We're documenting everything. We've got internal documentation so that, we can go back to it and refer to it as needed. And so that department check-in, we do it at the beginning of every month, is really crucial because we're bringing in those managers and the, like, higher, I guess, team that you could say, to really influence some operational decisions, but then also just client wise as well. What do we have on the horizon, and what do we need to be aware of?
Yeah, it seems like you run your meetings very well, and you kind of gave an overview, and I'm gonna reflect it back to you, and then
Yeah.
I want you to fill in the gaps of what I missed
Okay.
because I talk with a lot of people who kind of they lean into the meme of like this meeting could have been an
Yep.
email.
Yes. Really,
And
that
I'm
popped out as you said, like, our meetings are run, I'm like, "Yeah," because if they could have been an email, they're an email.
yeah, yeah, and you'll hear about it if your
Yeah.
meetings start to get redundant, right? So I wanna know, what is the process of how you encourage people to prepare for the meetings? My fiancé works at Amazon, and
Mhm.
Amazon is just like they are obviously world leaders in business systems,
Right.
communication, meetings, so they have a very structured way that they communicate. But from you, I heard you kick off the meeting with, like, new and shiny things, and then you go into maybe, like, wins or losses for since
Okay.
the last time we met, and then projects/bottlenecks, and then there was something where they're sharing new things and then
Mhm.
opportunities of how to improve. Is there anything I missed in that process?
Uh, no, I think the only thing that we'll add is after the opportunities is we just have a recap of action items. And
Okay.
so if there are any specific things, so let's say, especially during like the new process or during shiny things or after current projects, if we're like, oh, hey, let's go through and update, all of our client language, or let's go through and update in Notion or whatever we need to do, then we'll add that action items. And it just really holds us accountable so that week over week, we're not saying, hey, we mentioned this 5 weeks ago in a meeting and nothing ever came of it. I brought
Yeah.
that up as a new item. How come we didn't incorporate it? And so it holds
Mm.
ourselves accountable from the prior week, but then also from like a quarterly perspective and then a 6 month perspective as well, as what were we able to implement and what, new innovations, what new technologies were we able to capitalize on?
And then how do you encourage preparation for the meeting? Is there like a form? Is there a
Yeah.
sheet? Yeah.
We send out a Figma file. So I mentioned Figma earlier. That's our design
Mhm.
file. That's what we use for creative. And so they have Fig Jam, and it's
Mhm.
just a way that people can be all in one file at one time and collaborate. It's got like highlighters. You can drop in like a little like quote box. It's very easy to use. And so
Mhm.
we have a Fig Jam file that is segmented per person in that department. So it'll start off with like it would say Elena, new shiny thing, and then it provides a box for each item,
Mm.
and so that is available up to 3 days before the meeting, and so the
Mm.
idea is that, like, let's say you come across something a couple days before and you're like, "Oh, I need to remember that." You have a place to be able to drop it in this FigJam file, and then our content manager, and or whoever the department head is for that specific, creative, dev, etcetera, they'll send out that file 3 days in advance. Everyone will add in their information so that the day of the meeting, the expectation is that you've got all of your boxes filled out, you've come prepared. But it also gives people, a few days in advance to be able to add in there.
I heard that the Figma file closes 3 days before the meeting. I was like, "Wow, you guys are really scheduling
No, no,
meetings."
no. Oh, no, no,
Okay.
no. I'm
All
like,
right.
"Oh, no, no, no." It opens. So it's like we
Okay.
just try to make sure, yeah, because actually previously we used to send it maybe the day of. And so one
Oh,
of
yeah.
my opportunities was, "Hey, this is good," but like a lot of times I'll learn my new or my shiny thing might happen 3 days before then, or a few days before then, and it's
Mm.
like you've gotta kinda, and it's a very simple minute thing, but you've gotta remember, "Hey, let me keep this in my notes somewhere
Yeah.
else," and then be able
Yeah.
to move it over. It's just one less step. So, hey, if we always have those files ready and available, then people can put in their information for the next week without having to forget to bring it up. Or especially that opportunities, I utilize that a lot when, if something happens in the moment, specifically with a team member, and we don't need to stop everything that we're doing and talk about it right now. We can talk about it at a later date. It's not something that needs to break up their workflow. It's not something that needs to be discussed. I'll add it to opportunities and we'll talk about it in the next sales meeting or talk about it in the next marketing meeting. Just so it's like, hey, let's put a pin in that. Let's discuss it when we've got the sales director here, when we've got all of the right parties. But
Mhm.
I don't need to stop someone's flow while they're in the middle of a meeting, while they're in the middle of some execution work, when we can just hold that and table it until it's the right time to talk about.
I love that. And thanks for sharing because it's top of mind for me. It's actually in my weekly intentions of where can I document all the bottlenecks and things that I want
Mhm.
to discuss with my leadership team so that they're visible when the time
Right,
comes. And yeah,
right,
I think like a Fig Jam file or something like that
right.
is a great way to do that.
Well, because if not, it's like And what I have found is more often than not, it's like, okay, let's say that meeting gets put on the calendar with your leadership and you're like, "Oh, what things do I need to talk about?" And you're
Yeah.
trying to count them. And it's like, yeah, you can and you likely have a list, but it just when they're happening, if you're just able to document it in a way of like, "Hey, it's over here. I don't need to think about it right now. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
be in my peripherals, but it is documented in a way that when I need it, that information is there."
I love it. I love it. That's super helpful and something that I can carry forward and
Mhm.
implement this week. So, Elena, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you feel like you need to get out to the world? A message, a lesson, a perspective.
No, I don't think so. I think we really covered it. We talked about AI, talked about those best practices, foundations. I think right now, we talked about there's a lot of buzzwords, there's a lot of acronyms out there, creating good content, being a good human, creating,
Mm,
and doing it for the right reasons, giving back for the right reasons. And working with your team and recognizing that like yes, your team is important, but they're the people that work with your clients, and ultimately the ones that are going to be, when people think of Red Shark Digital, they're who you think of. So the more that you can take care of them, the more that you can again do good work, do the right things, good's going to come to you. So just reinforcing that in this day and age when everyone wants to talk about the robots and AI,
yeah.
there's still these humans behind the screen that it's going to make us more efficient, but just doing the good work and fighting the good fight. There's merit to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Remembering that humans are behind all the code
Exactly.
is that's what makes marketing great, or the great marketers great. Let's say
Right.
that.
And better.
Yeah. Yeah. And better and better. So, Elena Corsini, where can we find more about you, about Red Shark Digital, and what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Alaina-Corsini. You can also find us at redsharkdigital.com. If you head to the contact form, you can fill out that form. There's an info email as well that's redistributed to our leadership team. So if you want to talk strategy, want to book a call, kind of hear more about our services, we are happy to help. And then always looking for connections on LinkedIn as well. I think just having people in our network to know that we're not crazy and know that,
Yeah.
all the stuff that's going on, there are people along the same boat as well. So happy to connect there as well.
Cool. I love it. I hope the audience does. It was a pleasure to host you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all your insights. I love that you just came alive, specifically when we're talking about structured human connections, which are commonly known as meetings.
Right.
And I think you do that really well. On top of all the marketing expertise that you're leading at Red Shark Digital. So thank you for being a great guest, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much, Austin. I appreciate it.